what's up guys? I'm Steve Wells, and today we are going to be talking about something I've been messing around with for about a week here, and that is the Coros Pace 2. So this is something that I've been wanting to try out because I've always had Garmin watches, and a lot of people have been talking about Coros, especially recently, and so I have this watch from a friend that I have been borrowing for about a week and trying out. So these are not going to be kind of long-term review type things or in-depth explanation of everything that this watch does, but it's going to be essentially things that I have noticed using it over the last week or so, things that I think are reasons that you might consider this watch, or things that I found bothered me whenever I was using it. But before we get into the review of this watch, be sure to head down to the description, click the link to my Patreon there. That is the best way to help out the channel and help keep me doing what I'm doing. So if you're looking for more detail and technical specs of this watch, you can definitely find them online everywhere, but I'll also be sure to put the important stuff down in the description so that you can just head right down there and check it out. You don't have to listen to me just reading off a list of everything this watch does. So let's get into some reasons that you might want to buy this watch. I think number one reason probably that a lot of people are looking at Coros is because of the battery life. So I've been using this since Wednesday was the last time I charged it, and today is Saturday. I've done not too many activities. I've probably done maybe 2 or 3 hours in GPS mode, and then the rest is been in watch mode. I have texts and emails coming through to it, that kind of thing as well, and it is currently at 76%. So I believe this watch is supposed to do 30 hours in GPS mode, which is pretty impressive, especially for the price range that it is, and it having, you know, full color screen and all of that kind of thing. In full GPS mode with heart rate and everything, my Garmin Instinct is supposed to do 16 hours, which I've done 14 in GPS mode with it, and I was down to 1 bar of battery, so that seems about right, that 16-hour number. It also has ultra track mode though, which is supposed to go up to 60 hours, which I hope I never do. But in terms of a watch that is around $200 that has full color screen, different watch faces, and can go for 30 hours that you could run a 100-mile race with, I don't think Garmin has anything that is in kind of that category. Another thing that I have enjoyed about using this watch is it's really easy to use. So if you're a person that doesn't like to try to figure out how to use their tech gadgets, they just want to be able to put it on and start using it, this is probably better than a lot of Garmin's for you. Garmin tends to have, I've found, weird placement of things, like you have to hold down 2 buttons and then go into a specific place, or go into your activity and then there's like a weird secret menu that you can find there. And a lot of stuff on Garmin's I have to look up how to figure out how to do it. But on the Coros, it was much easier. I could just pick it up and start messing with stuff, and I figured out 90% of it in probably 10 minutes of messing with it. Along with that, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but their app is fairly good. I find Garmin's app to sometimes be a little bit confusing, and Coros app, while not incredible, I would say is probably on the same level as Garmin's. So not significantly worse, not significantly better. So something that I actually really like about this watch that I wasn't expecting to is that you actually have to scroll this wheel to unlock it. So without twisting this wheel, if you press any buttons or anything, it's not going to do anything, which is actually really nice because with my watch, I'll be bending my wrist doing whatever, and I'll start hitting buttons, and then I'll realize that I accidentally just started a run when I'm at work or something like that, that I'm try to look down at it and it's on a weird screen or something like that. And so I think just having to spin that dial a little bit to unlock the watch is a really good feature that I think it would be cool if Garmin integrated in some way, pressing 2 buttons at the same time or something like that to unlock it. So you basically just have 2 buttons on this watch. You have your bottom button, which if you hold it down will take you to all of your different menu options. You have the top button, which if you press that will take you to all your different activities, and then the top button's also a scroll wheel, so you'll use that to move up and down to navigate through the menu. Now this watch actually does have a lot of different activities for the price range that it's in, and one thing that I think is going to be really attractive for a lot of people is the fact that this has a triathlon mode. So in kind of briefly looking it up, and from what I can remember, I think that in order to get a Garmin with the triathlon mode on it, you have to get the Garmin 724, which is around $500. So in order to get a Garmin that has triathlon mode on it, you have to pay over twice as much what this watch costs. So if you are into triathlons, maybe you don't care about spending a ton of money because you have a $5,000 bike and a $2,000 swimsuit. But if you're just getting into triathlons, I think that this watch is definitely one to take a look at, because if you're not willing to spend $500 on a watch just to get into doing triathlons, this is probably going to be a better option than most Garmin's. I also noticed whenever I was using this watch, it's totally possible that it's just my watch or my phone or something like that, but I was noticing that whenever I finished a run, this watch was syncing to my phone much more quickly and much easier than any Garmin I've had in the past has. And that's a common problem that I hear from a lot of people that have Garmin's, is that they have trouble with it syncing to their phone after they finish an activity. And I didn't have a single run that didn't immediately sync with this watch. So let's talk about the actual physical watch itself. It's very lightweight, so let's actually put it on the scale. It's 1 ounce. Let's see what my Garmin weighs. 1.8 ounces. So this watch is actually 0.8 ounces lighter, and I feel like you can really feel how light, well, not feel how light it is, I guess, because when you have it on your wrist, you hardly notice it's there. It's also pretty small. Just to give you an idea, this is the size that it is on my wrist, and if you compare that to the Instinct that I have here, you can tell that it is much thinner for sure, and also seems just kind of to mold to your wrist a little bit more with how this is kind of articulated and that kind of thing. This watch also does have this band that is totally adjustable, so if your wrist is growing or shrinking a little bit, you want it just a tiny bit looser, a tiny bit tighter, instead of having to go an entire notch, you can just adjust it a little bit, which I've found to be good and bad. Good because you can kind of control exactly where you want it, but bad because sometimes it's kind of hard to find that sweet spot. Whereas with a band like this, you can just go to the same hole every time and you know it's going to be about right. So let's talk about some cons that I had with this watch. My number one con probably that I just am not sure about with it is it just, whenever you first pick it up, it just feels really cheap. It almost feels like we have display models of Garmin's in the store, and it kind of feels like one of them because it is so kind of light and plasticky. My next con is with the activities. While I say there are a ton of different activities, which there are, there is one that I feel like is really missing, and that is walking. I don't know if maybe I just can't find it or what, but I went to walk the dog for the first time with this watch and realized there is no walk activity, which seems like a really basic, straightforward activity to put on your watch. I also actually have written down that there is no activity history on this watch, but I just figured it out a couple of minutes ago, and it is in a super weird place. To get to your activity history, you actually have to go into your activities, and then you go to AI trainer, and then you have to scroll down, and then you can see your activity history. And I had a hard time finding that. I feel like it should just be kind of a menu option on the very basic home menu. If you take a look at the watch face here, this was my favorite one that I found. There are a good number of different ones that you can download from the app, but not nearly as many as I think Garmin has. They also are very cluttered, so I wanted something that had the date, the time, and what day it was, and my battery life. That was all I wanted on there, but this was the only one that I could find that had all of that stuff and wasn't just so cluttered that you couldn't read any of it. And so I think coming up with different watch faces is probably something Coros is working on, I'm sure, but something that is not quite there yet. I also think that while it is cool that you can spin this dial to navigate through the menus, I feel like you have to twist it a lot to get it to go at all. So I'm twisting, and then it goes. So it's almost a full revolution of the dial before it actually goes to the next menu item. And I feel like it could definitely be more sensitive than that to move through the menu more quickly. And when it's on your wrist, it is actually a lot harder to kind of navigate using this dial. So I really like the idea of the dial. It just needs to be a little bit more sensitive, I think. My next con, while I do like this band, I wish that if you pulled a little more on this, that this would pop all the way through and you could kind of just wrap it around your wrist instead of having to kind of shimmy your hand into it. That's just kind of a personal preference thing, and if you have a little bit smaller hands than I do, it would probably not be as big of a deal for you, but that was something that I was not liking as much when I was wearing this watch. And my last con is that it is kind of hard to read this watch a lot of times. So if I just like glance down at it, a lot of times it'll be dark like that, and then you have to press a button to get it to light up and be able to read it. When I'm wearing a watch, I want to be able to just glance down briefly without having to do anything and be able to see what time it is. But with this one, a lot of times in most lighting conditions, I had to press a button before I could actually read the watch. And I think that this problem could easily be solved by whenever you tilt the watch up, the screen lights up. So if you're looking at your watch, it tilts up, the screen lights up. That's what a lot of Garmin's do. And I know that this one already has the gravity switch in there because some of the watch faces turn on and off different things when you look at it. So I feel like just a software thing, probably, not that I know that much about software, but it would probably be pretty easy for them to fix in the future. So overall, I was kind of surprised by how much I liked this watch. I knew that a lot of people liked it, but I wasn't sure if I would or not. And I'm actually pretty impressed by it, especially for the price point. Now, would I buy this watch? Probably not. At this price point, I would probably go with an Instinct that was on sale. You can get it around the same price as one of these, or maybe look at some of the more expensive Coroses, just because of the kind of cheap feel of this one just really bothers me for some reason. Or even look at like the Garmin 245 or something like that. But if you're looking for something in this price range that has a really good battery life, if you are maybe starting to do ultras and want something to track that mileage with, or you just hate having to charge your watch, or if you are getting into triathlons, I think that this is probably one of the best watches out there for this price point. Obviously, you can get $1,000 watch and it's going to be better, but at around $200, this has a lot packed in there that I was really impressed with. So I hope this video has been helpful. If it was, be sure to like and subscribe down below. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. Be sure to check out my Patreon account down there in the description, and I will talk to you guys next week.